What's up guys? Another month, another update. Today we have the second part of the June Alpha update. There's some exciting stuff in this one that we'll go over, like 2 new types of PvE faction missions, changes to PvP rewards, some improvements to wars, and also the issue of spawning back at your player camp while flagged for PvP. They also talk some on loot and gear, and shows some more themed armor sets they've made, and also give a brief update on how and why they're changing and removing some player titles. So now, let's get into it. First up, we have the most exciting one. It's the changes to PvE, PvP, and companies. 2 new types of PvE faction missions have been added: Assassination and Elite. Assassination missions challenge players to take out specific high-threat foes. Elite missions send players to take on Eternum's most dangerous villains and their minions. These missions are higher difficulty with a higher reward. It's recommended that you bring a friend. They polished the territory quests and updated tracker texts and map pins. They also reduced the weight cost of Azoth fast travel by 20%. Invasion rewards are now based on your scoreboard score. These are some nice additions. I love the idea of having a group quest, and it's nice to see rewards will be rewarding the player putting in the most work when it comes to invasions. So, if you haven't already, consider subscribing to stay up to date on New World and never be left behind. Now we have the war declaration updates. War declarations will now reward the most active companies in the influence race with a higher chance of being selected as the vanguard. All companies in a faction are no longer eligible to declare war when a territory is thrown into a conflict state. A company must have contributed at least 10% of the total influence required to throw the territory into conflict. And in the unlikely event that no company contributes over 10%, any company will be eligible to declare war. The war declaration button now indicates a company's eligibility to declare war. If more than one company declares war on the same territory during conflict, the amount of influence a company contributed toward the conflict increases its chances to be selected as the vanguard. This is a great change. I heard many people complaining that they couldn't actively have grudge wars because once you threw the area into a contested state, other people would just snipe the war declaration, stealing your chance to rematch no matter how much work you put into it. So now into the PvP changes. They reduce the durability damage to equipment when you die to another player, and they also increase the XP gained from PvP kills, and increase the rewards for killing players that have been alive for more than an hour by 4 times, making PvP more than worthwhile now. When you flag for PvP, if you choose to respawn at a camp, each time will have a increasing respawn cooldown. This cooldown will continue in the background even if you spawn back into a town. So first, I love the fact that they're rewarding PvP even more with loot. What I really want to see is a chance for an extremely rare drop that is really valuable, like you might get 2 a month if you PvP all day, just for an added cool factor. The camp changes are a needed addition. There's a problem with people just spam spawning at a camp in PvP, creating a never-ending battle that was more annoying than it was fun. Next, we have another exciting one. It's titles and achievements. Many players provided feedback that there were too many titles, and because of that, displaying a hard-earned title didn't feel special. Some titles have been removed, and most will be earned only by completing high-level achievements. If you see someone with a title, you know they've put in the work to unlock it. The title change UI has a pronoun selector. You can decide if your character's title should use he/him, she/her, or they/them pronoun when the text of the title allows it. Move titles down on the overhead nameplate to display on the same line as the character's current company, if they have one. Players can now disable achievement notifications. added Steam achievements. Completing some in-game achievements will also grant Steam achievements. Personally, I love that they're putting titles behind harder achievements because it adds a feeling of working hard and gaining something to show that you put in a lot of time and effort into that thing. I really hope to see different unique colors to types of titles that might add more ways for you to stand out. Now we have progression updates. They reduced the XP required to level by 20% for all levels after 7. XP rewards for repeatable expedition quests has been doubled. Town projects have been improved. Rewards will now reflect the level of effort required by the mission. Missions that require rare resources have had their quantity required reduced, and a wider variety of missions are available for town upkeep projects. Reduced the XP bonus granted from leveling up territory standing. Adjusted the amount of territory standing gained from crafting, as some crafted items could generate disproportionately large amounts of standing. Increased XP for crafting jewelry items, and decreased XP for crafting jewelry components. XP for cutting gems has been increased as well. Adjusted harvesting XP to fall more in line with weaving progression, and they adjusted the weaving and leatherworking trade skill XP curves to better align with the amount of gathering necessary to achieve a similar level in the respective gathering skills. Personally, I hope to see trade skills take a very long time to level and have a real investment, so that way players that choose to get very high levels in those trade skills will have something unique, and other players might have to reach out to them to get something made that requires a really high level. Now we have loot and gear. They've added a ton of new armors that all look pretty badass. Each tier 5 faction armor will have unique visuals depending on the faction. Lost and drowned enemies now have separate gear drops, with each having their own style. The Breach Ice Gauntlet has a new visual look. Fire staves and tower shields for the lost, ancient, and corrupted enemy families now have new color schemes. Lost, heavy, and medium armor drops have a new look at tiers 3 and 4. Updated the visuals on outpost rush weapons. Added weapon sets for dynasty enemies in the open world. Updated the visuals on dynasty shipyard expedition weapons. Added new armor sets with interesting visuals to the global open world drops, for example a 17th century barkeep's outfit. Updated visuals for the tier 5 weapons dropped by Elite Angry Earth and Elite Ancient enemies. It's always nice to see more armor sets and variety. I'm really hoping we see something along the lines of a transmog system to overlay the cosmetics of any piece of armor you want. Now, continuing on, there's some changes to the dropped armors and weapons as well. Increase the chance for expedition armor and weapons to drop with one more perk than usual. Clothing and trade skill related perks can now be found at elite points of interest, or POIs for short, in end-game areas. Increased special drops from expeditions and elite POIs. Significantly increased the drop chance of named items from expedition bosses and mini bosses. Added more equipment rolls to elite POI chests, and adjusted the drop rates for other content on elite chests. This will also impact large chests found in expeditions. Expedition bosses will drop a wider variety and higher quantity of loot when defeated. Increase the drop rate for some named enemies in the open world. Significantly increase the drop rate of items on the global named item list. At least one gear drop from expedition bosses will guarantee a gear score increase, provided the boss is powerful enough to grant one in the first place. Crafted and dropped armors can now roll skill perks. Players can now salvage gear that they receive as drops into gold and repair parts, and resources gained from salvaging items has been removed. Crafted trinkets now salvage into lower tier raw versions of the gem used to craft them. In an effort to tune the gold economy, they've made some changes to the faction shops. Removed family coatings from the faction shop, added a special set of items to the faction shop that enable players to change the attributes on their faction equipment to a selection of different allocations. Prices of all faction shop items have been adjusted to align with updated currency rates. Updated epic armor quests by adding the ability to upgrade several pieces of armor granted as quest rewards in the mid to late game. Tuned high water marks, which is the player's ability to earn items above their current gear score, outcome rates, and introduced a floor so items from powerful level 60 plus enemies don't drop at a gear score far below their power level. The tribal loyalty charm in early game quest reward now provides increased constitution instead of strength. I love to see that the items can be salvaged into gold now, as it creates an entirely new way for people to make money, and it will also help funnel items out of the economy. Now we have crafting and gathering. Fishing. Updated piranhas, dragonfish, speartooth sharks, and stingrays to salvage into fish guts, with a chance to also grant an extra unique item for each fish, which can be used in alchemy. Added the ability to combine lower tier gems into higher tier gems at the stone cutting station. Players can now use any tier of solvent when refining gems. Tuning repair kit crafting costs, tier 2, 3, 4, and 5 now require 55, 100, 175, and 350 repair parts. Reduce the wood required to make charcoal from 3 to 2. Increase the raw resource refining costs of tier 4 and tier 5, refining resources by 50% and 100% respectively. For instance, star metal ingots now require 6 raw star metal instead of 4, and orichalcum ingots now require 8 raw orichalcum instead of 4. Increase the resource cost of crafting epic crafting materials like asmodium by 1. Slightly increase the drop rates of quantities of gemstones found in standard ore veins like iron and star metal. Remove the need for crafting mods on the first tier of crafting trophies. These have been replaced by elemental essence. Normalize the rarity of all crafted mods to uncommon. Honing stones can now be crafted in bulk. Milk now has a chance to be found in any provision container in the world, with a higher likelihood to be found in Windsward, Reekwater, and Brightwood. Removed food, granting trade skill bonuses from large provision containers. Quintessence are now epic rarity. For those gatherers out there, this is a nice change because increased resource requirements to refine in tier 4 and 5 means you'll fetch a much higher price for your resources. Next we have UI changes. The intro cinematic just before character creation has been updated with new dialogue that better sets up Captain Thorpe's story. The main menu now includes a more streamlined flow when a player enters without an existing character, leading them right into World Select. There's now a basic settings flow on initial character creation, which allows users to use common settings and adjust the screen brightness. The UI team focused on polish this release, fixing 259 bugs. Typing a direct message no longer makes a chat bubble. Chat now has a setting to display a dark background behind each message, making them easier to read. Group health bars now indicate disconnected status when applicable. I love to see that they're continuing to polish the starting UI, as it was a huge fault point in the preview because it just looked very dated and gave a bad impression right off the bat for new players. And lastly, we have the AI and combat changes. Expeditions. Increase the damage of all expedition creatures by 10 to 20% to provide a greater challenge to players. They updated Constitution to have diminishing returns on the amount of HP granted per level, the more points you put into it. Previously, it started at 15 HP per attribute point and would gradually increase as you put more points into it, with a cap of 34. Now it starts at 25 HP granted, and decreases gradually until you hit 21 HP per attribute. This decreased the total HP granted from Constitution slightly, from 12,175 to 11,325, but increased the amount of HP players get from Constitution at lower level. They updated targeted healing. Pressing Control while a heal is active will now automatically perform a self-heal. Players no longer have to hold control before casting the spell. Overall, a very nice update. I hope to see more in the future for PvP. They're doing a pretty nice job of making PvP feel rewarding, and that is very important in creating open world PvP. And I think we will see a lot more players fighting compared to the preview event, and it's going to be exciting. So, what is your favorite part of this update? That's it for this one. I'll see you guys in the next video, and as always guys, have a good one.